I was sitting across from Bethany at this upscale Italian place downtown, the kind with white tablecloths and candles that flicker just enough to feel romantic. She'd asked me to meet her there on a Thursday night, said she had something important to discuss. Honestly, I thought maybe she got a promotion or wanted to talk about our future in a good way. We'd been together for about 18 months at that point, living together for the last 6. Things seemed good, or at least I thought they did. Sure, there were little things here and there, constant suggestions about what I should wear, comments about my friends, hints that maybe I should pick up different hobbies. But I figured that's just how relationships work, right? You compromise, you adjust, you meet each other halfway. But when I walked into that restaurant and saw her sitting there with this serious expression, almost clinical, and a folder resting on the table in front of her, I knew something was off. The air felt heavier. She didn't smile when I sat down. She just waited until we ordered, let the waiter walk away, and then slid that folder across the table toward me like she was handing over a business proposal. "Before we take the next step in our relationship," she said, her voice calm and measured, "we need to discuss some things." I opened the folder and I swear to you, I had to blink a few times to make sure I was seeing it right. There, inside, was a laminated sheet. Laminated. Like she'd gone to Kinko's and paid money to make this thing permanent. The title at the top read, "Requirements for Marriage, Areas Where Derek Needs Improvement." I sat there staring at it, my brain trying to catch up with what my eyes were reading. The list started with my income. Apparently, I needed to increase my salary by a minimum of 40% within 12 months because my current salary was inadequate for our lifestyle goals. Then came physical fitness. I needed to join CrossFit, specifically CrossFit, lose 15 pounds, and develop visible abs. My car was next. I had to trade in my Honda Civic for something marriage-appropriate, and she'd even specified the brands: BMW, Audi, or Mercedes only. She'd moved on to my wardrobe after that, a complete overhaul required, and she'd attached a Pinterest board with approved looks. I could feel my pulse in my ears as I kept reading. She wanted me to phase out 3 of my closest friends, Corey, Miguel, and Josh, because they were apparently negative influences on our future. My hobbies were up for negotiation too. Gaming was to be limited to 2 hours per week maximum, and I was supposed to start taking golf lessons because they were a networking opportunity. Then she got to my family. Visits to my mother were to be reduced to holidays only. She'd actually written that down. My mom, who raised me by herself while getting her nursing degree, who'd sacrificed everything to give me a good life, was now being scheduled like a dentist appointment. The list went on. I needed to commit to an MBA program by next fall. She'd already researched schools, and we had to purchase a home in a specific neighborhood within 2 years. Minimum 3,500 square feet. The final item was about social media. I had to remove all photos with ex-girlfriends and update my relationship status to include her in my profile picture. When I finally looked up from the list, she was watching me, sipping her wine like she'd just presented a quarterly report. "I've thought long and hard about this," she said, setting her glass down gently. "These are my non-negotiables. I need to know you're serious about our future." I just stared at her, then back down at the laminated list in my hands. My mind was spinning, but somewhere in the chaos, something clicked into place. I looked up at her and said, as calmly as I could, "This is really helpful." Her whole face lit up. She actually smiled, leaned forward a little, like she was relieved. "I knew you'd understand," she said, her voice warming up for the first time that night. "So, when can we start working on these?" I didn't say anything. I just pulled out my phone, opened my notes app, and typed one sentence. Find a new girlfriend. I turned the screen toward her so she could read it. Her smile disappeared. I placed a $20 bill on the table to cover my drink, stood up, and walked out of that restaurant without looking back. My phone started blowing up before I even made it to my car. Texts, calls, voicemails, all of it. I ignored every single one. I drove straight home, and the second I walked through the door, I started packing her stuff, boxes, bags, whatever I could find. I wasn't angry, not in the screaming, throwing things kind of way. I was just done. Completely, totally done. I called my landlord that night, explained the situation, and he was actually cool about it. I changed the locks the next morning, put all her boxes in the building's mailroom with a note telling her to pick them up by Sunday. The entitlement of it all, the audacity to think she could hand me an actual improvement plan, like I was some kind of project she was managing, like I was a fixer-upper house she'd decided to invest in, it was unreal. I didn't need that. I didn't need someone who saw me as a list of flaws to correct. I was good. I was fine exactly as I was. And if that wasn't enough for her, then she wasn't the one for me. The fallout from walking out of that restaurant was absolutely wild, and I mean that in the most unhinged way possible. Bethany's entitlement didn't just stop at the laminated list. Oh no. It escalated into territory I didn't even know existed. So, apparently, after I left her sitting there, she didn't just pack up and go home. The waiter at the Italian place, a guy I'd gotten to know because I'm a regular there, he told me later that she sat at that table for another hour. A full hour. She kept telling people at nearby tables that I was having a moment and that I'd come back once I processed everything. She actually believed I'd walk back in, sit down, and apologize. The waiter said she ordered another glass of wine and just waited, checking her phone, glancing at the door. He felt bad for her at first, until she asked him if he thought her list was reasonable. He told me he just smiled and refilled her water. Friday morning, I'm at work, trying to focus, trying to pretend my life isn't imploding, and I get a call from the front desk. Security's on their way up. I'm confused until I get downstairs and see Bethany in the lobby with her laptop open, showing my co-workers something on the screen. She'd made a PowerPoint presentation. I'm not kidding. It was titled Derek's Transformation Plan, and she was trying to get people I work with to talk sense into me. Security had to physically escort her out while she was shouting about how I was throwing away my potential. My manager, Carl, pulled me aside later, and he just looked at me with this expression that was half concern, half disbelief. "Bro," he said, "is this real life?" But it got worse. So much worse. Friday evening, I get a call from my mom. "Honey," she says, and I can hear the confusion in her voice. "Bethany's here. She's brought a therapist." I actually had to ask her to repeat that because I thought I'd misheard. Bethany had driven 2 hours to my mom's house with an actual couples therapist in tow, a real licensed professional. This therapist, Dr. Whitman, had apparently been hired under the impression that I was struggling with severe commitment phobia, and that this was some kind of emergency family intervention. My mom, bless her heart, let them in just to hear what they had to say, probably thinking this was some kind of misunderstanding that could be cleared up. Bethany had created an entire presentation for my mother. She talked about my potential, about how I was underachieving, and then, and this is where it gets truly insane, she told my mom that she had enabled my mediocrity, that my mother, the woman who worked 2 jobs while going to nursing school, who raised me by herself and gave me every opportunity she could, was the reason I wasn't living up to Bethany's standards. Dr. Whitman started to catch on that something was very wrong when my mom asked, So, did Derek agree to this session? Bethany's response was, he will, once he understands what he's throwing away. The therapist packed up her stuff right there, told Bethany this was completely inappropriate, and left. My mom told Bethany to leave too, but not before Bethany said, and my mom quoted this to me word for word, "You're the reason he's like this. You never pushed him to be exceptional." The audacity, the absolute audacity. Saturday, I'm sitting at home, still processing everything, and I get an email. The subject line says, "Business proposal," and it's from Bethany's dad, Richard. I'd met this man maybe 5 times in the 18 months we'd been together. The email was formal, typed up like a real business offer. He was offering me a job at his construction company, a junior manager position with a salary increase that would meet the requirement Bethany had listed. The catch? It was contingent on me reconsidering my hasty decision and attending couples counseling with his daughter. But here's the kicker. He'd CC'd Bethany on the email, and at the bottom he wrote, "I've solved the income issue. The other items on Bethany's list are reasonable and achievable with dedication." I just sat there staring at my screen, wondering what kind of alternate reality I'd stumbled into. Sunday rolled around. That was the deadline I'd given Bethany to pick up her stuff from the mailroom. She didn't show up. Instead, her friend Tara showed up with a U-Haul and 3 guys. I thought, okay, finally, this is over. But then, building security called me because there was a problem. Bethany had given Tara a list of things to take, and that list included my television, my gaming console, my coffee maker, and I cannot make this up, my grandmother's china set. Bethany's reasoning, according to Tara, was that she'd used the china more than I had, so it was basically hers, and that she'd invested in improving my apartment, so she deserved compensation. I had to go down there and point out exactly what was actually hers. Tara kept arguing, getting more and more frustrated, until one of the guys she'd brought, this big dude with a ponytail, just looked at me and said, "Dude, she told us you were abusive and stealing her stuff, but you seem chill and she sounds crazy." After that, the guys refused to take anything that wasn't in the boxes I'd packed. They helped Tara load up what was actually Bethany's and left. The guy with the ponytail even apologized on his way out. I thought that was it. I really did. But Monday morning, I'm making coffee, trying to start my week, and I get a LinkedIn notification. Bethany had updated her profile. She was now calling herself a life coach and relationship consultant, and she'd published an article. The title was, "When You Outgrow Your Partner, A Guide to Upward Dating." She didn't name me directly, but it was obvious. She wrote about spending 18 months trying to elevate a partner who was content with mediocrity, and how she'd created a framework for relationship advancement that had been rejected by someone too comfortable with average. The article was public. The comments started rolling in almost immediately, and they were brutal. Someone found my original post in a relationship advice group and linked it. People started connecting the dots. Within 2 hours, Bethany deleted the article, but the screenshots were already everywhere. People were roasting her across multiple platforms. That night, she sent me one final text, but it came from her sister's phone because I'd already blocked her number. "You'll regret this when you're 40 and alone with your video games." I stared at it for a second, then typed back, "Already having more fun alone with my video games than I had with your lists." I blocked that number too. Later that night, my buddy Corey, one of the so-called negative influences, came over with pizza and beer. We stayed up until 3 in the morning playing Call of Duty, talking, laughing, just being ourselves. It was the best Monday I'd had in months, maybe years. No lists, no expectations, no one telling me I wasn't good enough. Just me, my friends, and the life I actually wanted to live. I really thought it was over after that. I genuinely believed Bethany would take the hint, lick her wounds, and move on with her life. I was wrong. So wrong. The entitlement didn't just continue. It escalated into something I can only describe as unhinged. Wednesday morning, I get a call from the office at my apartment complex. Deb, the lady who works there, sounds somewhere between annoyed and amused. "Derek, you've got a situation," she says. Apparently, Bethany had filed a formal complaint against me for illegal eviction and theft of property. She was claiming she was a legal tenant and that I'd violated her rights by packing up her stuff and changing the locks. Here's the thing, and Deb knew this, Bethany was never on the lease. She never paid rent, she just moved in. Deb told me to come down so she could show me the complaint form, and when I got there, I saw it with my own eyes. Under duration of tenancy, Bethany had written 18 months, 6 months physical, 12 months spiritual tenancy. I didn't even know what to say. Deb just shook her head and said, "Hon, I've seen some nonsense in this job, but this is something else." Thursday, I'm at the gym, just trying to work out, clear my head, live my life. I'm at the water fountain, and who walks in? Richard, Bethany's dad. This man, who I'm pretty sure had been to a gym maybe twice in his entire life, wearing brand new workout gear with the tags still visible, pretending like he just happened to bump into me. "Derek, wow, what are the odds?" he says, all casual. The odds were 0, Richard. Absolutely 0. I found out later from the gym staff that security footage showed him sitting in his car in the parking lot for over an hour, just waiting for me to show up. He corners me by the water fountain and starts in with this whole man-to-man speech. "Son," he says, and I'm not his son, "let's talk. Bethany comes from a good family. She has high standards because she was raised to expect excellence. Maybe her delivery was wrong, but her intentions were good." I just stared at him. "Richard," I said, "she literally graded me like a performance review." He kept going, talking about how she sees my potential, and I cut him off. "She sees a project," I said. That's when he dropped the bomb. "I'll buy you the BMW myself," he says, dead serious. "Consider it an early wedding gift." I laughed. I couldn't help it. I laughed so hard I had to sit down on the bench. "Richard," I said, trying to catch my breath, "I don't want a BMW. I like my Civic. It's paid off." His face went red, actually red. "You're going to throw away my daughter over pride?" he said, his voice getting louder. "She chose you." I stood up, looked him right in the eye, and said, "No, Richard, she chose who she thought she could turn me into. There's a difference." He stormed out, left his brand new gym bag sitting right there on the floor. I gave it to the front desk in case he came back for it. He never did. Friday was quiet, too quiet. I should have known something was coming. Saturday afternoon, I'm down in the basement doing laundry, just minding my own business, and I get a text from a number I don't recognize. "Check your mail." I go upstairs, open my mailbox, and there's an envelope. Inside is a printout from a dating app, a profile for Derek 29, with my photos, but a bio I definitely did not write. Successful professional seeking ambitious woman to build an empire with. Recently, out of a relationship with someone who couldn't match my drive. MBA candidate, CrossFit enthusiast, future homeowner. No time for games or mediocre mindsets. I just stood there holding this paper, my brain trying to process what I was seeing. She'd made a fake profile of me. She was out there, pretending to be me, having conversations with women. I know this because an hour later, my coworker Paolo calls me, and he's laughing so hard he can barely get the words out. "Bro," he says. "My sister just matched with you on Hinge, and you're being weird as hell. You keep talking about synergy and power couples." I had to explain the whole situation to him, and he couldn't believe it. But here's where it gets truly psychotic. Bethany hadn't just made the profile. She'd been scheduling dates, real dates, with real women, using my actual address. The first one showed up Saturday night while I was in sweats playing Elden Ring. I hear a knock, open the door, and there's this woman, Janet, dressed up nice, looking confused as hell. "Derek?" she says. "Are you okay? You look different than your pictures." I had no idea what she was talking about at first, and then it clicked. I invited her in, showed her everything, explained the whole nightmare. She was furious not at me, but at the situation. Turns out I had been talking to her for 3 days about our future villa in Tuscany and retiring by 45. We reported the profile together, and then, honestly, we just started laughing about how insane it all was. She stayed. We ordered Chinese food, sat on my couch, and just talked. When she left, she gave me her number. "Call me when your ex is done being insane," she said. "You seem normal." Sunday morning, I wake up to my mom calling, and she sounds more confused than angry. "Derek," she says, "why did I just receive an invoice?" An invoice. Bethany had sent my mother an invoice. It was itemized, professional looking, the whole thing. Relationship coaching and life improvement consulting. 18 months at $200 a month. $3,600. Personal styling services, $1,200. Career counseling and MBA research, $500. Meal planning and nutrition guidance, $900. Social circle optimization, $400. Interior design consultation, $1,500. Future planning and goal setting, $643. At the bottom, it said, "Payment due within 30 days. Failure to pay will result in legal action." My mom, who is the sweetest, kindest person you'll ever meet, left Bethany a voicemail. I heard it later because she played it for me. "Sweetheart," my mom said, her voice dripping with the kind of polite venom only a mother can deliver. "I'm going to need you to never contact me or my son again. And if you send me any more of your nonsense, I'll be billing you for the time I waste reading it. My rate is $300 an hour, minimum 4-hour blocks." But the best part of all this, the thing that actually gave me some peace, was a message I got on Instagram from Bethany's sister, Megan. I'd met her a few times, and she always seemed like the sane one in the family. She reached out not to defend Bethany, but to apologize. "I'm so sorry you're dealing with this," she wrote. I tried to warn her about doing this again. Again. She sent me screenshots from an ex-boyfriend of Bethany's from 2 years ago, and he'd gone through almost the exact same thing. Different list, same energy. That guy had to get a restraining order. "She thinks she's a lifestyle curator or something," Megan wrote. "Just document everything. You'll probably need it for the restraining order you're going to have to get." So, that's where I was. I had a lawyer now, my buddy's cousin, giving me a discount, and we were drafting a cease and desist letter. I documented everything, every text, every email, every insane thing she'd done. My friends, Corey, Miguel, and Josh, the so-called negative influences, turned the whole thing into a drinking game. Every time Bethany tried something new, we'd take a shot. Miguel's girlfriend told us we needed to find a new game because, quote, "y'all are going to get alcohol poisoning at this rate." Meanwhile, I was still driving my Civic, still gaming whenever I wanted, still wearing my so-called inadequate wardrobe, and honestly, I was living my best mediocre life. My lawyer sent the cease and desist letter and I thought, okay, this is it. Normal people would stop here. They'd realize they'd crossed a line, take a step back, maybe even feel embarrassed. But Bethany wasn't normal people, not even close. She hired her own lawyer. This lawyer, somehow with a straight face, sent back a counter letter demanding, and I'm reading this verbatim, compensation for breach of implied contract to improve himself, return of invested time and emotional labor, a public apology for defamation, which apparently meant me telling people what actually happened, and damages for loss of future lifestyle she reasonably expected. When my lawyer read this, he actually had to leave the room. I could hear him in the hallway laughing so hard he was practically gasping for air. He came back in with tears in his eyes. "In 15 years of practicing law," he said, "I have never seen someone sue for loss of imaginary future BMW." But while this legal circus was going on, Bethany decided to go full nuclear. She started a TikTok series called Dating Down My Story. She didn't show her face, used one of those voice filters and animated story formats that were popular. The first video got maybe 10,000 views. She painted herself as the victim, a strong woman with standards who'd been rejected by a commitment-phobic man-child who couldn't handle her ambition. But the comments were not kind. Gen Z does not play around. Someone found my original posts, connected the dots, and her comments turned into a roast session. "Girl, you gave him a laminated list. The CrossFit requirement is sending me. Spiritual tendency, ma'am, please seek help." She deleted the whole series after the third video, but people had already screen recorded everything. It was out there forever. Then came what I can only describe as the final boss level of entitlement. Bethany showed up at my cousin's wedding. My cousin Lucia's wedding. She wasn't invited. She'd never been invited. After we broke up, Lucia had specifically told me she was making sure Bethany's name wasn't on any list anywhere. But there she was, walking into the venue in a white dress. Yes, white. An actual white dress to someone else's wedding. She tried to position herself near the front, tried to catch the bouquet when Lucia threw it, and when security, because, yes, Lucia had hired security, tried to escort her out, she made a scene. She started crying, telling anyone who would listen that this should have been our wedding, that I'd stolen her dreams, that she'd planned everything, and I'd just thrown it all away. People were staring. Some were recording on their phones. My aunt, who is about 5 feet tall but takes zero nonsense from anyone, walked right up to Bethany, looked her dead in the eye and said, "Honey, you need to leave before I call the police, and take off that white dress. You look desperate." Bethany wasn't done. She somehow grabbed the microphone during the reception, right when the DJ stepped away, and started making this speech about true love conquering all obstacles, staring directly at me the entire time. The DJ cut her mic within seconds, but it was too late. Everyone had seen it. My Uncle Antonio and my cousin Marco, who's a cop, physically carried her out. She was screaming something about suing them for assault. Marco, who dealt with way worse in his line of work, just laughed and said, "Please do. I would love to show this video in court." The restraining order was granted the next week. The judge read through everything, the list, the invoice to my mom, the fake dating profiles, the wedding crash, all of it. She just looked tired, like she'd seen too much of humanity's nonsense for one lifetime. "Ma'am," the judge said to Bethany, "this behavior is concerning. You need to leave this man alone and perhaps seek professional help." Bethany tried to argue that she was the victim, that I'd led her on, that she deserved closure. The judge cut her off. "You sent his mother an invoice for being his girlfriend. That is not normal behavior. Order granted, 500 feet, no contact, 2 years." After it was all over, Richard called me. He sounded embarrassed, exhausted. Turns out, Bethany had been lying to her parents the whole time, telling them we were still together, still working things out. He had no idea about the restraining order until the papers were served to their house because Bethany had been using their address. "Derek," he said, his voice heavy. "I don't know what to say. We didn't raise her to be like this. I'm sorry." I told him I appreciated the call, and I meant it. Megan sent me one last message, too. "She's in therapy now," she wrote. Real therapy, not whatever that intervention thing was. Mom and Dad are finally seeing what the rest of us have been trying to tell them for years. I'm sorry you had to be the one to expose it. But my favorite twist in all of this? Janet, the woman from the fake date. We'd been hanging out. She thought the whole story was hilarious in hindsight, the kind of thing you can't believe actually happens in real life. She came to game night with my friends last week and absolutely destroyed all of us at Mario Kart. Corey said she was already cooler than Bethany ever was. She didn't care that I drove a Civic. In fact, she said it was smart to have a paid-off car. Revolutionary concept, right? My mom framed the invoice Bethany sent her. It's hanging in her kitchen now. She shows it to everyone who comes over. Can you believe this girl tried to bill me for dating my son? It's become legendary in our family, the kind of story that gets retold at every gathering. Last I heard, through the grapevine, Lutaya's husband works with someone who knows one of Bethany's co-workers. She'd moved back in with her parents and started a new self-improvement journey. Apparently, she was making lists for herself now. Growth, I guess. Baby steps. As for me, I was still gaming with the boys, still wearing my inadequate wardrobe, still driving my Civic. I even added a bumper sticker that said, "Mediocre and proud." Miguel got it for me as a joke, but honestly, it stayed. It felt right. I never did join CrossFit. I did start going to a boxing gym, though, not because of anything on her list, just because I figured I might need to defend myself from future crazy exes. The trainer asked why I joined. I told him the whole story, and now the entire gym knows me as List Guy. They actually printed out her list, the original one, and put it on the wall in the lobby as motivation, with a big red X through it. People take pictures with it. The best revenge, if you can even call it that, is that I'm happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. I'm living my average, mediocre, list-free life, playing video games whenever I want, visiting my mom every Sunday, hanging out with my so-called negative influence friends who've been there for me through everything. Bethany wanted me to change every single thing about myself to be worthy of marrying her. Turns out, I'm perfectly fine being unworthy of someone who sees love as a performance review, who sees a partner as a project to be managed and optimized. To everyone who followed this journey, who commented, who shared their own stories, thank you. Thank you for the support, for the laughs, for reminding me that I wasn't crazy. May your relationships be list-free, and may your standards be about actual compatibility, about loving someone for who they are, not who you think you can turn them into. Peace out from my adequate life. Oh, and one more thing. That PowerPoint presentation Bethany brought to my office, my coworkers saved it. We use it as a template for joke presentations now. Last week, Carl, my manager, presented requirements for getting Derek to cover your shift, with items like must provide minimum 3 bags of Doritos and commit to watching The Office marathon with commentary. Even upper management thought it was funny. Some legacies, I guess, are just meant to live on forever.